Hi friends, welcome back. This video is going to be a bit different from my normal paycheck budgets because I filmed the whole thing last weekend only to discover that my mic didn't actually record any audio. I'm not going to pretend to fill out the whole budget again just because, so we're going with what's already there. It is what it is. Before we get into it, I once again have to say thanks so much to everyone who has liked and commented and subscribed in the last couple of weeks. I know this channel is but the tiniest of fish in a very large ocean of personal finance content, and I deeply appreciate everyone who has signed on to watching me try to get my shit together. Now, onto the review of my last budget. In a shocking turn of events, my spending was over what I planned. Again. In my defense, there's a legitimate reason this time. Income-wise, my paycheck was the same as always at $2,717.09. I also had the expense reimbursement come through for the continuing professional education event that I went to at the beginning of November, so that was technically an extra $77.50 in income. I say technically for reasons you'll see shortly. This brought my total income to $2,794.59 versus my budgeted amount of $2,717. My fixed expenses were as expected, just my usual YouTube stuff, which came out to $31, which was $2 less than my budgeted amount of $33. This brought my leftover balance to $2,763.59 versus a budgeted amount of $2,684. My variable expenses are where me being over budget really came into play. Therapy was the $100 I expected due to rearranging sessions around Thanksgiving, and what I took out for food is staying at $50 because I don't track my cash spending in here. Like my last paycheck, I spent less on gas than I budgeted, which is, again, not great because it means I haven't been riding as much as I should be. But hey, it is less money spent. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough less to completely offset an unexpected purchase in the form of, and this is probably TMI, supplies to treat athlete's foot. The combination of me running regularly and the weather turning to 24/7 sock weather has not been the nicest to my feet. So, because of that, I ended up with total variable expenses of $267.64 versus my budgeted amount of $225, which brought my leftover balance to $2,495.85 versus the budgeted amount of $2,459. Making these videos has been such a good accountability partner for me that I honestly did have to fight with myself before I spent the extra money, but this is one of those moments where it's more important to look after myself and my physical well-being than it is to stick to what the budget says. So, my savings were as budgeted in my last video except for one thing. I took the expense reimbursement and set it aside to go towards my CPA license renewal fee, which is why I say that I don't really count that as income. My final ethics CPE will be done next week, so I'll be renewing my license as soon as that's over. The fee is $100, so the expense reimbursement will cover the majority of that cost. Total savings for my last paycheck were $1,062.50 versus a budgeted amount of $985. My leftover balance after that was $1,433.35 versus a budgeted amount of $1,474. Coming down to my debt payments, I wouldn't have been over budget even with my unexpected shopping if it wasn't for the extra $75 that I put towards my Chase card, but no regrets on that. My total debt payments were $1,453.96 versus a budgeted amount of $1,454, which brought me to a leftover amount of negative $20.61 versus a budgeted remainder of $20. Not ideal, but I had enough in my checking account to cover the overage, and I think my reasoning in this case was justified. Moving on to my most recent paycheck, which was almost a week ago now. My budgeted income remains the same at $2,717. Part of me wonders why I keep making these videos when basically nothing changes, but I guess it goes back to the whole accountability thing. Anyway, if we come down to my fixed expenses, there really aren't any surprises here. My New York Times subscription is back to just under $5, so that's good. Otherwise, everything is the same as usual. Rent, storage unit, my Patreon and Google subscriptions, my TFD subscription, iCloud, Experian. No surprises. I did get a question on a prior video about my storage unit, so I want to take this opportunity to answer that. Someone asked if I can sell anything that's in there, and the answer is yes, but I'm not going to. About half of its contents is roughly 2/3 of my book collection, which on the one hand, I don't have any desire to get rid of because one of my life goals is to have a home library. And on the other hand, It would be useless to try to sell those because the secondary market for books isn't exactly lucrative most of the time. I do have some special editions, but they're not special in the sense that they're worth anything. They're just, nice hardcovers, so not much market for those. The other half of the storage unit's contents is housewares, some of which I've had since I lived in my apartment in college, some of which I bought when I thought I was going to be moving out to go to graduate school in 2022. I was admitted fully funded to a behavioral economics doctoral program, the irony of which is not lost on me, given my current financial situation, but I ended up deciding not to go. The rest of what's in there is stuff that I've received from family, like a practically new queen mattress and box spring that my parents gave me when they upgraded to a king. Most of that stuff is pretty high quality, so yes, I probably could get a decent amount of money for it, but here's the thing. It's already bought and paid for, and I acquired pretty much all of it before my finances deteriorated to what they are now. Basically everything I bought in 2021, so it has been a very long time. But as I'll go over in a future video, things didn't really get bad for me until the back half of 2022. So, not part of this. The only things I'm actively missing when it comes to being able to move into a house are a bed frame and a sofa. If I sell what's in my storage unit now, I'm just going to have to replace all of it anyway in what will hopefully be the next couple of years, and I don't want to do that, particularly given that I got a really good deal on most of it before and probably couldn't replace it at a similar cost. With that ramble over, my budgeted fixed expenses are $920 and the leftover budgeted amount is $1,797. My variable expenses are also pretty unexciting. I'm budgeting $75 for gas again, which we are really going to hope that I actually get close to this time because that means that I'm actually riding my horse. This week's been a little rough because it's really cold here, so I haven't made it out much because it's not fair to him to work when it's under 20 degrees, but hopefully next week will be a little nicer. Therapy is at $50 as usual, and my food budget is at $20 again, although I didn't mark it as cash this time because I did use my debit card to buy a chai latte over the weekend. My plain products refill hit, so that's another $33, which brings my budgeted variable expenses total to $178 and my leftover amount to $1,619. My savings are the same as usual, so nothing to remark on here. My budgeted amount is $985, which brings my leftover amount to $633. If you're curious about what goes into the $680 that goes into my horse's checking account every paycheck, check out my last video where I broke down exactly what I've spent on him in the time that I've owned him, as well as how those numbers feed into my monthly budget for him. Finishing up with my debt payments. There's only one in this paycheck and nothing extra. As per usual, I've paid $595 to my bank Visa, which is a payment that I already made on the day that the statement period opened. So this brings my leftover total to $38. Pretty low amount, but we are basically a week into this pay period and I haven't had any major surprises so far. So hopefully it stays that way. All right, on to our favorite debt payoff worksheets. I have a few updates. Again, already colored in, so sadly you don't get to watch me color in stars this time, but it's fun. My bank Visa balance is down to $21,740.69, which is a decrease of almost $1,000 from my first video on this channel, and corresponds to an overall reduction of 4.19%, which let me color in these two stars. My highest interest rate Discover card balance is down to $5,241.83, which is a decrease of 9.32% from my first video, and also let me color in two stars. Unfortunately, the decreases on this card are about to become significantly smaller due to the change in which card is getting extra payments thrown at it. Thanks, Chase. But it's still cool that I'm at almost 10% paid off on this one. My total credit card balance decreased to $71,764.37, which is a total decrease of $2,490.89 from my debt confession video, or an overall reduction of 3.35%. As always, it's not huge progress, but on average I've paid down $830.30 every month since I started this channel, and that's obviously only going to continue to increase as I'm paying less in interest and more in principal each month. I'm really looking forward to when I get to the point where it's over $1,000 monthly decrease on average. It's probably going to be a few more months before I get to that point, but that'll be exciting. Anyway, that's it for this video. That did not go as it normally does at all. Thanks for your patience on this one, and hopefully next week we'll be back to my usual filming situation where my mic actually works, and it's timely. Thanks again for all the engagement, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.